Denise Duffield-Thomas. I am such a fan of yours. Thank you for being a guest on the show.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you because I feel like we're going to go into some really interesting directions.
Yeah, so I was introduced to you through a friend of mine. And by the way, I told her we were doing a podcast and she gave me a list of her questions, which I've never had before that
Love
she
that.
wanted to ask you. But my friend Trish is a huge fan of yours and she told me about your book, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch. And it's funny because of the word bitch, I sort of was turned off, but you actually talk about that in the book of why, that you had that sort of feeling about that word as well. But obviously, if you read the book, it is such an amazing, empowering book for, I think, women with any money blocks. Even if you don't have money blocks, I think everyone should read. So I have a million questions to get to. But again, thank you for being on here. I think this is going to be such a great, great episode.
Yes.
So it's this topic that a lot of people don't like to talk about, especially women. I have learned in my years, money. And I
Yes.
think your book goes into so many different facets of money blocks and abundance and how to magnetize it towards you. One of the best pieces of advice you give that I love is finding money that's sitting there, like unpaid invoices. And Trish wanted me to tell you stories of she did this with her husband, and they found so much money of claims and unpaid, outstanding invoices from people that they worked with. And it's those small little changes you talk a lot about in the book that make a big impact in your wallet and bank account. Can you talk to my listeners a little bit more about that and how that whole system works?
Oh, absolutely. So I think it's totally normal for people to be skeptical about things like the law of attraction. And I totally get that. I know that when I started learning about things like that, I was very confused about what you actually do. I was like, do I have to just meditate really hard on money or, chant under a full moon? And it really felt like a deservingness thing that I just couldn't quite figure out. And so I kind of put my skeptical Virgo brain on that and thought, okay, what if I just pay more attention to money and what I want? And that's when your brain starts to look for answers. It activates your reticular activating system, which is just like how we process information and how we train our brains to pay attention. And so I started to do all of this stuff for money, including things like just paying more attention to money, being super grateful to money, but really examining my thoughts and feelings about money, and noticing how many negative things I would say about money, how many negative thoughts that I would have about money, and even every single time where I thought, oh, maybe, I've got it figured out, I like money, I would say something. And I'll give you an example. I was at the farmer's market with my daughter, and she said, I want an apple. I gave her 50 cents. So 50 cents in Australia, they're gigantic. And I said, you go and buy the apple yourself. And I was like, oh, look at me, like I'm teaching my child to be independent. And then of course she went to put it in her mouth. And guess what I said, Sabrina? I said,
What?
don't put that in your mouth.
Dirty.
Money is dirty.
Dirty.
It's dirty. And I just thought, oh my God, there are so many things like that we say about money all the time. And it takes some unraveling sometimes to work those things out. But all of those things compound over time. If we think that money is dirty because we've been told our whole lives, yes, money is actually dirty, but also it's actually a really bad thing to talk about money. You're not allowed to talk about money.
Yeah,
It's rude, whatever
it's
it is.
rude.
It's rude. How are you going to send out an invoice? How are you going to ask for money? How are you going to tell someone your prices? Because every part of you is going, that's a really bad thing to do. And so my job is just to unravel some of those things with curiosity, not with blame, because I can't believe I even said it, to my kid, but with curiosity and compassion for ourselves. No wonder it's hard for me to send out an invoice. No wonder it's hard for me sometimes to ask for more money because I feel like I'm going to get into trouble.
Right. You do also talk about pricing, talk about like not sending an invoice. You talk about pricing your services and asking for basically what you're worth. And I believe even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you work for a corporation, asking for a raise, especially as a woman, it's this like, just be happy you have a job mindset. Be happy in this economy that you're working. Just be, grateful that you even have any income coming in. How do you, when it's true, you should be grateful that you do have that. How do you get out of the mindset of just being a good girl and shutting it up to pricing your service to what you truly believe it's worth?
Oh, absolutely. By the way, if anyone's listening and you are in a corporate job, there is a great book by Lois P. Frankel, and it's called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And she also has one called Nice Girls Don't Get Rich. And the tagline is something like, I think it's like 75 or 101 mistakes that women unconsciously make that sabotage their career and income. And that's exactly like what she's talking about, is this nice girl syndrome that we have. And by the way, I worked in corporate jobs all throughout my 20s. I don't think I ever really asked for a pay increase or negotiated my salary, because I didn't realize how much this nice girl thing lived inside me. And I think what we're trying to do when we're an entrepreneur is that we are trying to find a critic-proof price. We are trying to find the price that every single person thinks is reasonable, is fair, and we cannot do that. We cannot do that. There's always going to be someone who thinks you are too expensive, even if you are charging $1.
Okay, so talk to me about that, because this is something Trish and I talked about last night to ask you. She says that sometimes she sees people having retreats or something, and she gets turned off when they're asking for way too much money. Like, what are you getting in return? So is that a block that she has, or is there a sweet spot of asking for too much? Like, how is that?
Well, that's the thing. We are trying to please everybody all the time for everything. And it's totally fine that your friend Trish thinks that some things are too expensive. That's not necessarily a block in itself. There'll always be, I've made a lot of money. There are still some things that I will never pay for that. And there will be some things that I think are completely reasonable. And this is why this idea of a critic-proof price is so crucial. I'm sure you've done this as well. There are things that I wouldn't have spent money on until I needed that thing.
Right. Like health, anything related to your health.
Anything like that. But also, I remember one time I paid for copywriting because I was procrastinating it big time. And I sent out a quote, and the price that came back was way more than I wanted to pay. But I needed it. Right. I needed it in like a short period of time. And so it's really hard when we are setting a price to send out like feedback, basically, to get feedback from people. We're trying to crowdsource our pricing. And the problem is, who are we sending it out to? First of all, sometimes it's friends and family who, my God, they're not our customers. They have no idea what people would spend on our products and services. 2, sometimes it's people who don't need it. 3, it's people who maybe don't need it now, or it's not urgent for them. And when it comes to things like spending money on personal development, there's been times in my life where I really desperately needed a coach. And not desperate, but it was just something that I knew would be a really important game changer for me. And so then that's where I'm going to spend my money that year, maybe on a coach or a retreat or something like that. There are other years where that's not as important to me. So who's got the money block there? There isn't one. It's just sometimes there's a mismatch of pricing. But if you are crowdsourcing and you're saying, what would you guys pay for this? You are going to get so many different answers. And you think for most of the things that we're trying to sell, we don't need thousands and thousands of people to buy from us. There will be a match, and there will be a mismatch in pricing. On that though, which I think is really important, I don't know what Trisha's money personality is. She might be an accumulator, right? An accumulator is a very particular money personality. They need a lot of information. They need to justify their purchases. They write pros and cons lists. They need a lot of information. So when I'm selling something to an accumulator, they're the ones who are reading the sales page. And it needs to be tick boxes, benefit driven, no fluff. And they will be the people who join your course or program or retreat. And they are mentally ticking things off, going, did they give me this? Did they give me this? A different personality type, like an
How
alchemist,
many
for
are there? How
example.
many personality
Oh,
types are
there's eight. There's eight.
there? Okay, go ahead.
An alchemist, for example, would be someone who just gets caught up in the creativity of it. They don't care about the details. So there's no right or wrong. It's just, who are you marketing to? And here's the crucial thing. It has to be win-win. And
Yeah.
if you're not feeling in alignment with your prices, it's really hard to say them and to justify them. And I feel like sometimes we do unwittingly turn off clients because we're not quite, we don't feel good about the price, you know?
Right. So how do you then overcome that self-doubt if you are in that predicament?
Yeah. Well, every time that I've had to set a price, I've really had to sit with it energetically in my body. And I know when I've undercharged, what that's felt like. I'm sure you have as well, Sabrina. Like you know, get off the phone with a client, you finish a project, and there's just something that's gnawing at you. And I remember I spoke at a friend's event. I did it for free. And I gave it all, you know, I was there for hours and helping people. And I got in the cab afterwards and I felt so depleted. And it wasn't the work, it wasn't, you know, anything like that. I was literally like, there was no energy exchange here. There was no fair energy exchange.
Well, how
And
so?
so,
Because of the crowd that was there or because of your friend?
no, because I didn't get paid for it. And so
Yeah.
I felt like I sat there and I gave, but I didn't, there was no energy exchange, right? And so I really felt the deficit of that and I felt it in my body because it's got to come from somewhere. So I was like, oh, it's not fair. And so then after that, I started charging. Even if they were my friend, I would charge and I would feel like, oh, it's a fair exchange. And I think I just got it so physically in my body. It was so visceral that I thought, like, it doesn't work to
Yeah.
undercharge.
Right. Because then
It
it
just doesn't.
becomes resentment, not only for the person, but for yourself.
Absolutely. And I felt that in my body. So I think you have to pay attention to those signals. If you are feeling resentful of your clients, that is a big sign that you are undercharging. Or you're over delivering for what you're offering. So
Okay.
sometimes when I work with someone, like I wouldn't even say for most people, increase your prices straight away because energetically they're just maybe not ready. So one of the first things you might do is to clean up some of the leaks. So maybe instead of an hour with your sessions, you're spending 2 hours. Maybe you've got a lot of leaks where you're, I don't know, letting people have really bad boundaries with you. All of those things are money leaks, really, because you could chuck in more clients at the top. It's just going to cause you more stress, right? So you clean up those things, you clean up any relationships where you are giving unnecessary discounts or people are taking advantage of you, or you have bad systems, so you're not sending out invoices or you're not sending out reminders. Things like if you were a service-based business, maybe you're not charging cancellation fees.
Right.
You know, things like that you've got to clean up before you even think about increasing your prices, because otherwise it's not really solving the root problem, which is this internal feeling of I don't deserve this.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the deserving that also is, I think, the foundation of upping your money mindset game, you know? And I also believe that in this culture, there's like this mentality that you have to hustle, hustle, hustle. So, what is your take on that hustle culture versus just letting the universe flow in? Because it's like when you want to change, I feel like a lot of people listening probably think that they have to pound the pavement.
Well, I think there's a middle line, right? Because I sometimes hear from people where they're like, well, I don't need to market my business. I'm just going to manifest clients. And I'm like, great, but marketing is manifesting clients. You know, that's how you manifest clients. And so I like to find a middle ground because hustling for the sake of hustling doesn't always work either. Doing nothing doesn't work. So the middle ground is what I call chussel.
Wait, what's it called?
Chussel.
Chussel. Tell me what chussel is.
So chussel is chilled hustle. And that
Oh,
is
I love
finding,
that, Denise.
yeah, I haven't said that word for such a long time. I forgot it was even in my book. It's finding that path of least resistance for you. So a great example of that too is that you could be working really, really hard, but your products are really hard to find on your website. You're making it really hard for people to give you money because you're not using online payment systems, or you're not taking PayPal, or you're putting all of these barriers in place. And, maybe you're trying to do everything yourself in your business instead of
That's me.
outsourcing. Yeah, okay, I've done that myself too, right? And it's like you can work really hard, but do you have to do all the things? And I've got nothing against working hard. There's been times in my business where I had a big goal and I just had to, put it all in. But it's finding the right things to do. It's finding that path of least resistance for your personality. It's making sure that the pricing is right. It's making sure that you are not spinning your wheels and doing busy work. And sometimes that means not doing all the things, not offering all the things, and kind of streamlining a little bit to what's going to make the biggest difference, especially for your personality. We all work in a very different way, and letting go of some of those blocks that could be unwittingly sabotaging you.
Yes, I in the beginning said that a lot of times women aren't allowed to talk about money, but I actually think you're right. It's like, it's not just women. It's rude to talk about money at all times in any situation, which I had to pick and choose the people in my life to talk about it, because it's this like topic that nobody wants to talk about. But when I do finally discuss it with people, they help me with either investments or ideas. And I just want to kind of like take the taboo out of this subject, because I do think it's important. And it's not about the money. It's not about having like the Chanel purse. To me, it's about creating a life where you can have adventures, have the things around you that make you happy, whether it be, a pillow or the Ritz-Carlton, it all depends, because everyone's different. So how do you invest in yourself? Like, you've been doing this a long time. What do you think the best investment you have made in your career for yourself?
Oh, really great question. And you know what? It's been different at different parts of my journey. So one of the best investments I made when my kids were small was a lot of home help. A lot of home help. And I'm talking, I had a full-time housekeeper and a full-time nanny. And I think there's sometimes a misconception around things like that, where it's like, oh, well, then you've got someone else to raise your kids. No, it was having a village. It was having a village of, and they were all women in my house, to help us flow between work and family. And I remember when my first kid was really small, and it was, I was nursing her. So my nanny would, I'd nurse the baby. My nanny would make me breakfast. My housekeeper, would make me breakfast. I'd go, okay, I've got to go and do a Zoom call now. And so I'd go, but we would just kind of all did it and flowed together, because that's how we're supposed to do those things, right? We don't have that village anymore. So that was a big investment. But it was actually the best investment I could have made in my business, because I actually liked doing most things in the business myself. And even now I have quite a small team, but I couldn't have done that if I had just invested only in my team, but then home was, a nightmare. And so for a couple of years, I didn't wash a dish, cook a meal, do any laundry, anything, because that's the investment I needed in my life.
Yeah, and I think for anyone listening, even if you can't afford to have that help, it could be as simple as asking for your neighbors to help out, or a friend to help out. It doesn't necessarily have to be hired help. It could be investing in asking, accepting the assistance, which could be something that you have a difficult time with. At least I'm talking to myself now.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? Hiring a cleaner once a month might
Yeah.
be something that takes it off your mind, or hiring someone to like a neighborhood kid to watch your kids for an
Yeah.
hour while you work on your business. It can be done, but I think that sometimes we think there's only one way to invest in ourselves and in our businesses. And I actually think a lot of the time, especially for women, it's really practical help. And I know, that at that time in my business, I was like, I can do my social media, I can do my IT, I can do all of these things. But if I'm also then having to do the laundry, it's actually going to be really difficult for me. And so even if you can't afford it, I actually think the discipline of ignoring the laundry for a while is going to pay you more, you
Can
know?
I tell you, I have to admit something. I have a
Yeah.
confession. So I'm, you are on the podcast. I've been looking forward to the recording this. And I also have three other recordings today. And about 15 minutes before we started recording, I was upstairs because I record here in my house. So in juggling the podcast recording, I have a show now that's coming out. You know what I was doing right before we were chatting? I was taking a toothbrush to my bathroom sink with bleach to clean. That's what I was doing, Denise. And it's as I'm doing it, I actually let out a grunt because I'm like, why am I doing this now? When I'm about to record with somebody like a huge somebody that I look up to and an author that I just am such a fan of. Why am I cleaning the bathroom sink right now? And I think you're right. It's like some person, I don't know what personality I am, but it's like you can't do it all. And if you have to do it all, maybe it's the discipline of letting things go, letting things just go for a little bit. That is actually, this is just advice for me. You just gave me advice. I don't know if anybody else listening is the same way, but
Well,
I
I'm
think you're right.
glad. Because I know when I first started my business and I wasn't making a lot of money, my husband would come home and he'd go, "Why didn't you just put some laundry on?" And I was like, "Well, I was at work, and you know, no, or you would say, "Oh, can you go to the post office for me because you're at home?" And I was going, "No." And
Right.
this is really important, and this is going to be something that is going to feed our family. And I had to kind of paint that picture, but I had to have the discipline too of going, no, 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 do your work, because that's more important. And for anyone out there who wants to write a book or launch a program, or do something like that, it's totally okay for your house to be a mess while you're doing that. Or you do your work first. You
Yes.
put your stuff first and then you go, okay, I'll do the stuff. Because, yeah, we live in a real world. You still have to do stuff. And, if you've got kids and pets, they need attention too. But your dreams are also important and they deserve to take up space. And it's very easy to procrastinate, especially
Yeah.
when you don't have a boss looking over your shoulder. But you're the one that has to keep your dream top of mind and do the things to get that, to get those clients, to get that money, because no one's sitting around waiting for you. You have to go, why not me?
I think a lot of people listening after COVID, even people who have corporate jobs now work from home because now it's flexible. It's go into the office a few times, but now I feel like there's more pressure on you to manage the household while you're working. So having boundaries about what you said to your husband, like, no, it's almost like you have to pretend you're not even at your home when you're working office hours because it's easy to
Absolutely.
slide back into being, a homemaker. So now you're a full-time homemaker and a full-time employee.
It's a nightmare. Yesterday, I had, a salesperson knocking on the door, to sell solar. And I'm just like,
Oh,
I've got a
always the
Zoom call.
solar people.
I know. I'm like, I've got a Zoom call in 2 minutes. I'm like, bye. And there are a lot of distractions. But you know what? I've really realized now that, I have created this really big business. It's so much less time than you think. It's just that 80% of the time we're procrastinating, just doing the thing.
Like cleaning the bathroom sink.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I've done that myself a million times. And it's like, it really hasn't taken as much time to build my business as I thought.
Yeah.
It's literally doing the right things though, and the things that scare us sometimes. And I think that's why when we can remind ourselves what we're playing for, having dream boards, having a big goal that we're working towards that is emotional and exciting, that's the stuff that's going to help us overcome the fear. And other things, like being in community with other entrepreneurs, normalizing both the work and the success, normalizing the fear that comes with all of those things too, normalizing the sometimes uncomfortable rites of passage that come with having a business, like having people reject us and say we're too expensive, or all of the things that come with running a business. If you are alone in those situations, you start to internalize that, or maybe there's something wrong with me, and it's like,
yes.
no, it's just sometimes things happen in business, and that's okay too.
So you mentioned community with other entrepreneurs. For someone listening who wants a community, and especially I feel like in my 40s now, it's even more difficult to find friends. What advice do you give to clients in order to create that community, or to find your people?
Okay, so sometimes we think it's this mystery, and also I think sometimes people's childhood traumas come into place around this, right? Of going, I'm not in the cool group, or how do I find, people? And I always say to people, everything is a buyable experience. So if there's someone you want to work with, or if there's a community you want to be involved in, you can buy into people's communities. So I'll start there and then go to free stuff. So it's, if there's someone that you admire and they have a program or a course or a community or events or conferences or retreats, you can pay to get into those communities. And in my early days, that's how I made a lot of friends. I went to conferences, I went to retreats, whatever I could afford at the time. And here's my tip too. I always ask the first question of the conference, because I am a massive introvert and I get really nervous about things like speaking on camera, on microphone, even still. So I force myself to ask the first question. When they're like, has anyone got a question? I put my hand straight up, I run to the microphone and I go, hi, my name is Denise Duffield-Thomas, author of Get Rich Lucky Bitch, or whatever it is. And then I ask my question, and then I can sit down and I can go, oh, thank God. And then people come up to me, oh, hi, I heard your question. And that's always been my best tip to meet people, because otherwise I just freak out about it. But what I've also been really good at for the last couple of years in making friends is I join communities, there might be free Facebook groups for your industry or whatever it is. And I show up and I be really helpful. I'm not salesy, I've never been, but I've always just been that person who's encouraging to others, or if I've got an answer, I'll answer that question. And online friends are real friends.
Yes.
They really are. And then, make friends with those people, not to sell to them, but to create that community. Collaborate, exactly. If you've got a podcast, invite people on that you want to get to know. You can be a hub. You can create free Facebook groups. You can create networking or meetup groups. But I think what the thing is that I hear people say sometimes is, there's a cool group and I'm not invited, and that is totally childhood school trauma, which I totally get. But there is no cool kids club. It's just,
I don't know anyone that doesn't have that high school fear of, I'm not in the cool. Even the cool people I know from high school probably thought the same thing.
For sure. But that's the thing. A lot of people meet at conferences, events, retreats, things like that. So if you can get to those places, you'll realize that they're just normal people. And that's what I love when I get together with other entrepreneurs, where we have very similar experiences. You realize that you're not alone in your fears. And you also realize that no matter how much money someone makes, they're still just a normal person. Yeah. And it's really hard to do that if you just, by yourself all the time. And I mean, I live on the east coast of Australia. I would say most of my entrepreneurial friends are in America. They're all over the world, and I feel like I see them all the time, but of course I don't. Because I'm I never go anywhere because I'm an introvert.
I
But I'm
love it.
like, I feel like I've got a beautiful community around me, and that's because I've deliberately created that.
So, as an author of one of the biggest authors when it comes to money mindset, who are your mentors?
Oh, great question. So, some of my really early mentors are people that I still really look up to today. So, one of them is Kendall Summerhawk. She is a money coach. I'm certified in her money archetype system. I love her. Fabienne Frederickson is one of my early mentors. And it's, funny, I bought one of her programs like maybe 10 years ago. And she was based in Connecticut for a long time, and she moved her family to France. And I happened to be in Europe when she was hosting a retreat. And so I went on the retreat, and she was like, "Oh, Denise, I haven't seen you in 10 years. What have you been up to?" And I was thinking, but we talk all the time, because I still feel her mentorship
Yeah.
all the time. And I still quote things that she says, and I listen to her podcast. And I was like, what do you mean? We've never stopped talking. It's really funny. And then I'm also in some group chats with some other entrepreneurs. And again, they're just from people that we've met at conferences or different things. And we really we support each other, and that's one of the most important things for me, is just having that I don't know, just that casual support as well as mentorship. And there's been a few very successful people that I've met at conferences who I would say we've got a casual mentorship relationship where they'll text me sometimes, I'll text them sometimes. And I think that's important too, to always have people who are really far ahead of you to normalize what's coming. That makes sense.
One of your biggest fans, Susie Ashworth, was also a guest on my podcast too.
I
She
love
loves
her.
you so much. So what are you, she's fantastic. What are your daily practices to get yourself square and right when it comes to creating the life that you dream of?
Yes,
Is it a vision board, or what do you do?
it's all the things. Okay. But I want to say this. It's all the things because everything works in its own little way, but you do not have to be perfect with any of those, because I think sometimes we mix up these things in our head and we feel like that it's a deservingness thing, so we have to be perfect in it. Like, for example, I remember people saying, "Oh, you have to write down your goals every day." And I thought, well, I have ADHD. I never remember to do that. So therefore, I'm not worthy of having that thing because I'm disorganized or whatever. So what I try and do is to create a lot of different things in my life to crowd out the negative thoughts that will come up inevitably. Things like my screensaver on my phone is one of my goals at the moment, which I'm selling. I'll show you. Hang on. I'm selling a property. So I'll have sold. And I'll have that on my computer screensaver as well. There's been times where I've had a really big goal and I've put it on my TV. You can have your TV be a screensaver too. I've put it on my TV. When I get in my car, the podcast that comes on is a positive podcast, and so I'm trying to infuse as many things into my daily life as possible that do not require me remembering to do it and being
I love that.
deserving of doing it.
I love that because I
Yes.
think everyone hears like you got to journal every morning. You have to do a gratitude list. You have to meditate. You have to do a vision board. You have to. And yes, those are all fantastic tools, but if you don't get to it every day, that doesn't mean you're a loser, and that doesn't mean that you don't you're not worthy of the dreams that you want.
And you can do so many of these little things. So a lot of things in my life have meaning. So, I mean, I'm wearing a bee necklace. And for me, that's like, I'm a lucky bee. That reminds me, I'm a lucky bee. Often the clothing that I wear or the perfume, or I've even got my skincare has bees on it too. And so it's just these little visual reminders, but not just visual. I like to go through my senses. So I wear, that Lady Million perfume. I
No.
love, oh, it's called Lady Million. But anyway,
Yeah.
and they've got 5 different scents, and one's like lucky, one's fabulous, one's empire. And I mean, it's like drugstore perfume, but it's a little anchor that I don't have to think about, that sometimes I use, sometimes I don't. And I have a million of those throughout my life that you probably wouldn't, someone else wouldn't even necessarily notice those things. And I probably wouldn't notice them all every day either, but they're subconscious,
Yes.
and it only takes a little, like sometimes it's looking for the bad things and getting rid of them first. Like, oh, there's this squeaky wheel that really annoys me. What can I replace that with? And I call that, upgrading. So it's like, what can I upgrade to close down all those tabs in my brain
Yes.
and create more bandwidth? But then what can I replace that with? And again, there'll be times in my life where I'm manifesting something really big and important to me. And so I'll very, very deliberately go in and put pictures on the inside of my cabinets. I will write on my mirror in whiteboard marker. I will spray things around the house that smell like that goal. I will light candles that smell like that goal. So when I was manifesting building a beach house, I had a candle that smelled like the beach in this blue glass. I will change up what my key ring is on my car keys. And I will put in a million of these different things, because some of them will get in and some of them won't, but it will just give me that teeny tiny extra little bit of motivation to do the thing that I need to do.
It's the
And
mini
then,
upgrade. If you're listening and you
yes,
feel like you're in a rut, it's not about overhauling your entire daily routine. It's the small little shifts like the beach candle, or if you want to move to Florida, get a keyring that says Florida on it. Those small little details add up. And you're right, your
yes,
subconscious records it.
absolutely. Listen to songs about Florida, and all of those, then you start to, it just feels like it's inevitable. It feels like you've already achieved it. It feels like you're in the process. And it's like, well, is that magic? No, but it's like, starts to feel like it is, right? Because then those coincidences start to come in. You see signs because your eyes are open for it, right? And then each one of those things you go, oh, well, it's a sign I'm meant to do it, which gives you that extra teeny tiny bit of confidence to take action. And then it does become this self-fulfilling prophecy. And I mean, I look at some of the things in my life here and I think, oh, I remember what that was related to. I remember this was related to a particular goal. Just so many things are layered in to my daily life
what is
now.
it called? When you bury it, a time, why is
Like
it?
like a time capsule.
Time capsule. Yeah, it's like a time
Yeah.
capsule that you're surrounded with. Speaking of subconscious, how do you feel about subliminals?
I love subliminals.
You do.
So yes, so actually, I first started using this when I was a teenager, because I used to love going into those like crystal stores and alternative stores, and I remember seeing this cassette tape. And it was a subliminal learning tape, because I had ADHD, undiagnosed ADHD in high school. So I was always just thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I study? And it was a study tape to classical Baroque music. And it went for 45 minutes. And when I played it, I sat there and I studied for 45 minutes. And it felt like a miracle. So this was, for me, it was maybe 1996. It felt like such a miracle. And so, I mean, in a cassette player. So then I sought out more of those things, and as it became more available online, and then I create subliminals for other people too. And I created this one, and it was like 1,111 money affirmations, and it was so badly created. I made it myself on GarageBand or whatever. And it was like beach sounds, because I was like, again, wanted to manifest that beach house, right? So it was beach sounds, but I kind of slowed down the beach, and there was like seagulls in it. So it would be like in the middle of this beach sound. But people would send me messages and say, I don't know what is on that tape, but all of these things started happening in my life. And so I was like, okay, obviously there's something to this. And I remember even someone said, my cat has been bringing home mice every day since listening to this audio.
Even worked on the cat.
It worked on the cat. But people would say, oh my God, I feel like it's worked on my husband because suddenly he's changing his mindset. And I go, does that work? Or is it because your intention and you are more open to things now and you are seeing things differently too? So again, I put that in the bucket of everything works in its own way and it all contributes. So I actually created a ton of subliminals for the Hay House app as well. In lots of different categories, from pricing to being a millionaire, whatever. And I just say to people, I mean, don't play them when you're driving your car, but why not play them at night? You know, one little message might get in. But even if it doesn't, for me, I think I don't care if that subliminal worked for me as a kid. It was my, you know, it was just like, oh, now I'm studying.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I created that moment of now I'm studying. And so I feel like all of these anchors are just extra proof of like, no, I am a person who succeeds. I am a person who sends those invoices out. And, you know, I can't even begin to explain how some of those things work, but I feel like everything works. So don't get into a thing of, should I do this? Should I do that? Just try it all, but layer it in, because I'm not spending every day frantically running around going, oh my God, am I doing this? They're all already there, you know? So you can see in my background, so there's a typewriter. That was one of my earliest anchors when I was writing my book, of just having a typewriter around. There's my combi van, which was something I used in one of my early branding shoots, and then I wanted to buy one, and then I did buy it, and then the brakes always fail, so I was like, I'll just have the Lego one, that's so much easier. And so there are a lot of things, even just the color blue for me is an anchor. So some of these things you only have to set up once, and this is where it becomes, you can be a little bit laid back in it, because you're not frantically trying to fill the void or trying to convince yourself you're something you're not. You layer them in until it becomes your new normal, and this is just who I am.
Yes.
And then that way, then you have that muscle memory. You don't slide back to, you know, having this horrible mindset. All of those things just become the foundation of who you are.
Yes. Before I bought my house, I was in a rental, and I really wanted to buy this expensive candle. And I said, okay, when I get the house, I'll buy the candle so then I could burn the house in the candle, or burn the candle in the house. And I was like, why am I waiting to have a house just to burn a damn candle? And it was the burning of the candle that created this. I could have that sort of feeling of having that beautiful smell in the house now. And you don't have to wait until your dream is fulfilled in order to take the little steps it's about that feeling. It's surrounding yourself with the feeling, even if it's a Lego car or a typewriter that, you know, just visually reminds you.
And a candle's much cheaper than a house, so start there. But I like the way you said that, because actually smell is a very powerful manifesting tool for me as well. And so, you know, that thing, you know, when you see it, you can believe it. For me, it's if I can smell it, I can believe it. And I think everyone's got to look at for their dominant sense, because sometimes it's like, if I hear it a million times, I'll believe it. If I see it, so then you have to have the visual dream boards and things like that. If I feel it, I'll believe it. So it could be that, you know, you have a money jacket and it's like, I put this on and this is my money jacket and I'm going to send out my invoices. Or I have it, you know, a watch or a ring that I play with, or something on my key ring, because if I feel it, then I believe it. If I smell it, I'll believe it. You know, like that's the key, I think, is to do all of them, but really like nail in on those ones.
To yourself. I read once, and I don't know if it's true, but if you are trying to figure out what senses are most important to you personally, is what do you normally say? Like if you're talking to somebody and you say, oh, I see what you're saying, that could mean that you're more of a visual person. So pay attention to the words that you use constantly, and you might get tipped off of what senses are more important to you.
Yes, I love that, because it's like, oh, I hear you, I hear, oh, I feel you, I feel you. I don't think anyone's saying, oh, I smell that. Yeah. I smell what you're putting down. But yeah, I think that's important. And this is why too, it has to be personalized to us. And I struggled a little bit in the early days when I was just kind of following mentors and thinking, well, that's not right for me. You know, that doesn't resonate, which is, I'm a feeling person, right? And so it's okay to do it in a way that feels good to you and to find your path. The only thing is, make sure you're just not procrastinating and you're actually moving forward and you're taking meaningful action, that meaningful chussel, so you can, like, why not you? Like, it really doesn't take that much work, but it is work in the right direction.
Just start taking the step. I saw a meme the other day that says,
Yeah.
I'm working now for two people, my 80-year-old self and my 8-year-old self. And I thought that was so powerful because there are things that I procrastinate, and I know that my 80-year-old self would come over and slap me upside the head and be like, why didn't you do it? So it's like, no, even if I fail, like my show now is called the Sabrina Soto Show. We just released the trailer yesterday. It's going to be on Hulu and Amazon in the Design Network next month. And I
Wow,
know
congratulations. That is very cool.
but I was so
That's
afraid
very
of,
cool.
of having a show with my name on it because what if it fails? But it's like, you know what? Sometimes you have to take those risks. And, even if it didn't fail, I think I would be more upset if I didn't do it than if I did it and failed.
Well, what you just said was very powerful about the 8-year-old and the 80-year-old self, because I always think of my grandmother telling me this, but I actually think my 80-year-old version would say this. Imagine saying to them, well, I would have done it, but what if someone was mean to me on the internet? Like, you would just go, what?
Right.
Who cares? Who cares
Right.
about that? And all of us, we live in this time. It's a very volatile, crazy time in lots of ways, but we also have the tools that our grandmothers did not have to be able to create financial independence for ourselves, to be able to express our creativity, to be able to meet and have friends and clients all around this planet. And yes, it's scary. No one's saying it's not scary. Oh my God, I'm sure, you have fears all the time. I have fears all the time. No one's saying it's not, but if everyone's feeling the fear, why don't we all just go, okay, well, let's just do it anyway, because why not us? And you'll find that when you do that, people believe you. It's so weird. I remember thinking, I'm not an author, but I'm going to start telling people I'm an author. And this is another anchor I did. I put Denise Duffield-Thomas author on my email signature. And every time I saw that, first of all, I'd go, but it was a little,
Yes.
it was another little layer, right? And then I realized that other people believed me and they'd go, oh, when's your book coming out? And I'd go, I guess I have to do it. And I have literally, I've got 4 books with Hay House. I started self-publishing. I still go, am I really an author? But people believe that I am. You've said that I am, so maybe I am. You know? Yeah, well, I guess I am. But that's the thing. People believe you. And then once they reflect that back to you, then you believe it a little bit more, and then you take the action to do the thing. And that's all life really is. Everyone's just making it up. And we're all just trying to do our best, and that's all we can do, So spray your perfume on, light your candle, do the thing.
Denise,
It's done.
I cannot tell you how grateful I am for your time, for you being a guest, for your insight, for your knowledge. I love you so much. I am your biggest fan. So is my best friend, Trish. So thank you so very much for being a guest.
Oh, I cannot wait to see your show. Please let me know when that comes out. So tell me more about that. Just give me the 1-minute thing.
It's been 10 years I've been pitching the show. So I was on
Yeah.
HTV for 15 years, and I wanted to create a talk show that merged everything I'm passionate about: home, food, wellness, spirituality. And I pitched it for 10 years, and every network said no until finally it came true. And I can tell you that had I done this 5 years ago, it wouldn't have been this show. It would have been something different. And now it really is the most perfect iteration of the show that I ever had before. And I think that's a lesson in patience and knowing that the universe has a bigger plan. And sometimes you just have to trust. You keep your vision there, but you trust that the timing it will come when it's right.
That is so, so true. And then it's going to be so sweet. It's going to be so sweet for you. Enjoy every bit of it. Take all those behind the scenes things and
Thank you.
soak it in, because obviously you've worked for it and you deserve
Thank you,
it.
Denise. And for anyone listening, I will have all of Denise's information in the show notes. So please follow her on Instagram, all social media, and you have to buy her book, Get Rich Lucky Bitch. Trust me, you'll thank me later.
Oh, thank you, Sabrina. I appreciate it. Mwah.
Thank you,
Bye.
Denise. Bye.